Hello, welcome to SUSELive. My name is Brent Schroeder. I head the office of the CTO for SUSE. And on SUSELive, we talk about current events, current technology, emerging use cases, anything that's kind of impacting you and bring you insights into items that you can take advantage of and apply to your business. Joining me today is Michael Geller, and he's with Radware.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about some of the emerging security challenges that are coming up as the technology is changing under and around us at a lightning pace.
Indeed it is.
So, yes. Mike, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do for Radware.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Good to meet most of you. I am a distinguished architect at Radware. I focus on threats, really kind of protecting your critical apps and the networks that deliver them. I focus a good bit on carriers, some on enterprises and governments as well. Really across the board, applying a number of techniques alongside of the SUSE team, actually, which is really cool. We're excited about that, to arrive at safer customer outcomes.
Oh, great. So first question. Everything's changing, as we mentioned, so 5G, multi-cloud,
sure.
Container technology. It's really impacting, the businesses, enterprises, telcos, et cetera. Why don't you give us a little bit of insight into what some of those issues are that are coming up, why they're a concern, why enterprises and businesses need to be concerned about that, and just get us kind of started on the topic.
Sure. So look, it's really interesting to look at the answers to that question, because in the end, for those of us who have been doing this for some time, the problems remain similar, but they manifest themselves in different ways because of technology's agility.
How so?
So one of the things that we always need to focus on for our businesses is protection of data. Protecting PHI for healthcare, or protecting critical data for XYZ application, whichever it is, and making sure those applications are resilient, able to behave similarly under attack that they do at peacetime, and to make sure that we allow these amazingly capable thinkers in businesses today who security is not really core to their mentality, it's really more context, are able to focus their critical resources on achieving business outcomes and delivering those critical apps and the networks that deliver them, having them properly protected. So things can be kind of automated and more results oriented and efficient in how those results come. You think about it and you say, well, all right, that all sounds good, but what does that even really mean? You asked me a little bit in that question about what challenges are brought today in 5G. Well, 5G went from this centralized, bare metal, then virtual machine-driven architecture to a cloud-native, widely distributed, connectivity everywhere, explosion of both an application fabric of network functions and a fabric for partner and network connectivity that's driving revenue and applications at the edge. I use that word very carefully because it means a lot of things, kind of like cloud, a lot of things to a lot of people. But the net of it is, you look at what's happening in 5G and you look at why we're so excited to work with SUSE on this. Yes, we protect those critical apps and the networks that deliver them for web application vulnerabilities, leveraging machine learning and some of the other techniques we use around day zero threat detection and mitigation. Same for bot management, same for API security. But even that, you look at the interaction of one piece of software to the other over an API. That 5G edge has that everywhere. Matter of fact, the 3GPP folks named an interface for it. And when you think about that now, you look at what SUSE offers between SUSE Linux and SUSE Linux Manager and Rancher and the derivatives of Kubernetes implementation. I mean, those network functions talk to each other over a secure Kubernetes fabric. So you think about it, you look at even in that space, in the telco space, which is a very hard one to get into from an evolving architecture perspective, because, you look at it and say, well, they're all going towards some derivative of a cloud native open implementation. And we find it a very natural extension of what we do to pair with you all with SUSE on that outcome. Think about it, it's really no different for enterprises than web scalers and enterprises in that respect.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit more. We're seeing the rise in sophisticated AI-driven attacks.
Yes, sir.
Right. So, can you elaborate on how Radware's AI-driven threat management solution, working in conjunction with SUSE, helps protect against AI-driven attacks? So it's AI against AI.
So it is, but one of the things that SUSE and Radware is better together brings is that we bring a lot of the discipline around security of the different silos that matter. Okay. So for example, if you look at what NewVector does as part of SUSE's portfolio, and some of the container scanning and the vulnerability management and all of the CI/CD pipeline management and some of the zero trust stuff, those are basic blocking and tackling that you have to have. AI, no AI, you can use whatever two-letter acronym you want, but that stuff's got to be there. Then you go and you say, all right, well, what's AI's little brother? Machine learning.
Okay.
So Radware have been adopting machine learning, for example, in the DDoS space. We look at, instead of using static thresholds, think if you use a static threshold and I say, okay, I have this flood of traffic that's over this line. Well, what's the difference between a DDoS attack and a flash crowd? None, nothing, right? So you have your people going and chasing ghosts. So in order to make that not a problem, we used a machine learning technique we call behavioral DOS to be able to go then and turn around and say, you know what? I'm going to create a dynamic signature, because the attackers, the attacks themselves, they're like me. They have multiple personalities. so when you go and look at it now, I have to be able to constantly evolve and morph with the case. So this is what we use machine learning for.
So a singular. The old model of here's the signature that I'm going to, signature that I'm going to look for, and if I see this signature, I block it. That doesn't work anymore. Well,
it doesn't, because the attacks are so dynamic now, and they evolve. That doesn't mean, by the way, that process you just described is still not being used heavily. It is. But in order to make it work, you need to be able to sort of shuffle in this machine learning capability. So now, that's on the DDoS side. On the application side, if you're looking at traditional WAFs and what we call a negative security model, again, which is about thresholds and rules and things, again, you behave, the applications might be updated 100 times in a day. What are you're going to have some poor soul sitting and tweaking those thresholds in front of a screen 100 times a day, all day? It doesn't work. Right. So you need to be able to understand behavioral aspects of it. When you look at managing bots, 85% of the traffic in the internet is bot based. And those bots for attacks, they generally run out of places where you can't just write an access list and block it. What are you going to do? You're going to block everything that comes from GCP or Azure or Microsoft? No, you can't do that. So you have to have some sort of ability to look further. And we used a machine learning approach to do this. So you can think of all these different places across all these different silos of security. But you look at it and you say, well, yeah, okay. So some poor soul, even though as good as our portal is, some poor soul would have to look at all those events and figure out either reactively, I saw X plus Y plus Z and that means this. Or
it could be too late.
Could be, or it likely is, or proactively, where you say, okay, I see these trends toward impact on behavior. Maybe there's an issue here. So I can be ahead of the game. And then you put a kind of a Chat GPT, Copilot, whichever one you like the best, kind of natural language portal in front of it, and have your SOC be able to ask the system questions. So these are all driven by AI. So it's are we digging so much into the training of, the security issues around hallucinations and integrity of training LLMs and things like this? Not as much.
Right.
We're talking here more about the better efficacy as a result of application of AI to the security domain.
Very good. So next question. I've heard you talk about collective security and threat intelligence, right? How does the SUSE and Radware collaboration enhance that threat intelligence, enable faster, more effective response for our customers?
So this is a loaded question, and I like it. What we generally do is we have in terms of the Radware space, we have a honeypot that runs and a collections network that runs worldwide.
Okay.
We have a base of information because of how widely successful our cloud and on-prem solutions are. We have a number of other sources of threat intel that we put all together into actually a threat intel service. Now, most enterprises or carriers or governments have a threat intel capability where you kind of write to via APIs and you make it so very easy for them to either ingest our threat feeds, which is what many do, but then you have to figure out what to do with them once you get it.
Okay.
Or you utilize some sort of a SIM, a SOAR, a threat intel capabilities, even open source capabilities for this, where you put these different threat intel components together to arrive toward an outcome. So we actually see the partnership with SUSE to be quite rich here. And open source intelligent, what they call OSINT, happens to be a derivative of open source that is widely beneficial to many of our joint customers. What we mean by that, we see folks that are involved with SUSE for many years back that have been, kind of shepherds of the open source community, some of the best known people, best read people that I know. Yeah. Well, now you're seeing that acumen. Well, now I see there's more over the last probably decade or so of leading thought people going into this area, into how do we kind of create open source threat intelligence capabilities to now make it so that finding and feeding that threat intel world becomes kind of a part of our security hygiene. That's something we have a chance to really change the game on together, in my mind.
No, that's exciting. Looking forward to that.
It is.
So let's kind of summarize where we are, for the audience and CTOs and CISOs out there that are like evolving, through this cloud native journey. Particularly maybe people that are still coming on, because it's still a very young space and
agreed.
A lot of people early in their adoption. Now, how would you summarize the 2 or 3 things that people need to kind of take away, think about their environment, and maybe actions they need to look at, for understanding, how well they are protected?
So what my take here is that don't forget what got you here. What got you here is protections of the entire, understanding the vulnerabilities and the exploits related to the entire stack that you run in your business, number one. Okay. Number 2 is there are a set of best practices, whether you're working on a router and you look at the best practices for hardening that router, protocols, configurations, whatever it is. Same for Kubernetes, same for the virtual machines you run, same for the APIs that you run. All of these have a set of best practices. And the question that you might think of from that is, well, okay, do I need to hire 1 million people because there's 1 million different components? And this scale is one of the main advantages of what I see SUSE and Radware together bringing to the industry and our customers, which is, how can I automate across many of these different outcomes? How can I get there? Because in the end, it's about protecting my customer data. It's about protecting my APIs from nefarious actors, transactional integrity, not allowing data to be exfiltrated, things like this. It's about protecting the critical applications that you run and protecting the networks that deliver them. Now, there's probably 2 hours worth of conversation in that answer, but you can imagine that if I were to guide a CISO, or I would guide somebody that is putting together a strategy, that's kind of where I would aim. That's where I would aim the gun, so to speak.
And I think that that's maybe why we've got a great partnership, is we believe very much in a defense in depth strategy, which means there is no one solution that covers the entire enterprise today.
Well,
right?
and a good thing to think about, if you look at all the skills that live in the SUSE domain, SUSE Linux, and all of the best practices around it, Kubernetes and Rancher, and and Linux Manager, and this and that and the other, all these different things that you all do. My other advice that I would give to that person asking the question is, know who your friends are and know who the experts are. Many of them are out in the open source domain, and those of us who network well in that respect do better. Yeah,
and it's one of the recommendations I make is, as you're entering a space, surround yourself with people that have been there and done that.
Indeed.
And leverage best practices, because there's some things you don't need to learn the hard way. And security is definitely one of those spaces that learning the hard way is a rather expensive approach. So.
Yes, and we all learn the hard way anyway. So it's point well made.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today. Great conversation, great topic, and timely. For companies that are at the point of deploying and bringing up many of these new technologies. So,
yes, sir. My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. So,
I enjoyed it.
So with that, I hope you got some great takeaways for today. And if you've got follow-up deep dive areas that you want to do, like I said, align yourself with partners and those that have been there and done that, can leverage best practices, so you don't necessarily have to experience the same aspects and learnings the hard way that everybody else has already done. So with that, I thank you for joining us on SUSELive, and look forward to seeing you next time.